For sinister supernatural tales from haunted small towns, creepy secrets revealed. In the seemingly idyllic town of Mill Creek, darkness lurked beneath every perfectly trimmed hedge and friendly wave from the neighbors. Sarah, a single mother, shouldered the weight of the world, working late-night shifts at the Mill Creek convenience store to put food on the table for her 10-year-old son, Jamie. Life was a grind, but it was hers until the night the chilling messages began to arrive. That evening, after locking up the store, Sarah sat in her car, fatigue clawing at her eyelids. Her phone buzzed like a forgotten chaos stirred from slumber. "They're planning tonight. You have to be careful." A cold shiver crept up her spine. She glanced around, sharp eyes searching for shadows in the gathering darkness. The streets were ghostly quiet, even the chirps of crickets had ceased. She dismissed the text as a cruel joke, driving home as unease settled in. Back home, Jamie's laughter echoed through the thin walls, a fleeting sound of normalcy. But Sarah's heart raced as the clock ticked louder, every second woven with dread. Mill Creek was surrounded by thick woods, a picturesque restraint, yet in her gut, she felt the creeping fear that something sinister lay beyond. As the storm rolled in, pouring rain against the windows, her phone buzzed again. "You shouldn't have ignored us. We know what lies beneath Mill Creek." Sweat trickled down her back. With each message, the shadows thickened around her, transforming familiar faces into menacing silhouettes. Just as she decided to shake off the fear, the lights flickered, then died. Outside, a loud scream shattered the stillness. Sarah's pulse pounded in her ears. Huddled with Jamie in the living room, she clutched a blanket around them both, eyes glued to the window. Dark figures swarmed outside, their faces twisted by the rain. Panic surged, flooding her veins like ice. Before she could call for help, the town's familiar faces began to gather outside, their expressions taut with fear. Among them stood Mr. Collins, a man once considered an elder, now transformed into the most sinister specter. He stared at the woods, voice trembling. "The witch has awakened, and she calls for blood." Terror twisted in Sarah's stomach, realizing her neighbors might not just be a backing chorus in her life but players in a macabre game. In that heart-stopping moment, the ground beneath them trembled as if it were breathing. Fear surged throughout the small community as the wind howled like a banshee, and shadows darted between trees. Each heartbeat echoed the question, who could she trust? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Fingers trembling, Sarah locked eyes with Jamie, who was blissfully unaware of the impending terror. The tall shadows flickered, moments of false calm before crashing back into chaos. Townsfolk shouted, eyes darting, their trust eroding like sandcastles facing the tide. It was clear, beneath the surface of their quaint existence lay buried histories echoing a darker truth. As the wind howled louder, drowning out reason, Sarah realized they were not just battling an unseen force, but a web of betrayals woven into the fabric of their town. The air thickened with secrets, each one sharper than a knife, and the darkness began to whisper to her. Would she and Jamie make it through the night, or would the truth of Mill Creek consume them whole? The answer slipped through her fingers like shadows in the night, and the unsettling journey was just beginning. The wind shrieked outside like a lost soul. Sarah's eyes darted from the window to Jamie, who remained blissfully unaware of the swirling tempest around them. Each scream and shout outside twisted her insides tighter. "Stay close to me," she whispered, clutching him tighter against her side. The room felt smaller as the shadows crept closer, their elongated forms clawing at the edges of her sanity. She could hear the muffled voices of neighbors, some pleading, others shrieking warnings that slipped through the cracks in the door. There was chaos outside, a kind of madness she had only read about. The power might be out, but the darkness had a weight, a tangible presence clinging to every surface. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the backyard. Fear pierced her heart, and she moved instinctively to the door, her hand hovering over the lock. But the panic swelled within her. What lay outside was not merely the townsfolk, but something deeper, something they had awakened with their greed and ignorance. "Mom, what's happening?" Jamie whispered, looking up at her with wide eyes. His innocence frightened her more than anything. "Just stay here, sweetheart." "I'll check," she murmured, forcing herself to sound calm. She slipped back towards the window, peering through the sodden glass. The figures were blurred under the relentless rain, but she could make out Mr. Collins pacing wildly, back and forth, his hands tugging at his hair like a man losing his mind. A flicker of movement in the woods behind him caught her eye. Her breath caught as she felt an unmistakable chill arching down her spine. It wasn't just the storm, something was lurking between the trees, shifting, forming, perhaps even waiting. "Mom!" Jamie's frightened whimper pulled her back. She turned to him, eyes wide, and dashed back to where he stood, tiny fists balled in fear. "Sure, we'll be okay. We just need to wait this out," she lied, trying to convince them both. But deep down, a voice whispered that safety had vanished into the chaos swirling around Mill Creek. Across the town, lights began flickering back on deep inside her neighbors' homes where there was no assurance of warmth and comfort left. Only flickering shadows danced across windows, poorly masking their dread. Whispers began again, trickling in through the door like poison. "She's chosen, we must give what is due." Sarah's heart raced. Did they mean Jamie? The thought wrapped around her chest like a vice. There was no escaping the realization that the town was not just afraid, but it craved something. A frenzied need clawed at the community, urging them towards the darkness lurking at the edge of the forest. "Mom?" Jamie's voice cut through her thoughts, laced with confusion and fear. "I don't want to be here any more." Then came a frantic pounding on the door, followed by muffled voices calling her name. "Sarah! Open up! They're coming!" With her breath hitching in her throat, she locked eyes with Jamie, who knew fear too well at such a young age. This wasn't just about survival, it was about a truth that had been buried but was now clawing its way out, hungry and relentless. The pounding grew more frantic, voices rising in a crescendo of desperation. "Please! It's real! They're trying to get her!" Adrenaline surged through her veins like ice. She glanced at the door, then back to Jamie. The world outside was turning into a living nightmare, and the thin walls of their home felt less like a sanctuary and more like a coffin. Before she could make the decision to open or hide, a massive crack of thunder shook the ground. And as the lights flickered back on, illuminating the room for one brief moment, she caught sight of something in the window, a shadow so dark it seemed to swallow the light. "Mom, what is that?" Jamie's voice trembled as he pointed, eyes wide with terror. The air became thick, suffocating with every heartbeat as the door splintered under the strain of panic outside. Somewhere, a low voice echoed from the shadows, wrapping around her ears like a shroud, "We've come for what's owed, what was owed." And could she protect her child from whatever darkness lived in Mill Creek? Every instinct screamed for her to run, but there was nowhere to escape. As the door cracked open and chilling laughter spilled into the room, she faced the truth. They weren't just coming for her, they were come for blood. What would she sacrifice to save Jamie? The next chapter in this warped tale was about to unfold, but one question lingered: how much would she be willing to lose to survive? The door burst open, wooden shards flying like deadly projectiles. Sarah gasped, clutching Jamie close, shielding him with her body. The figures poured in agitated shadows with faces twisted in manic desperation. She barely recognized their features, her neighbors now seemed like distorted reflections of the people she once knew. "Where is she?" A voice shrieked, hoarse and frantic. "We must offer her to appease the darkness." Their eyes shimmered with a frenzied light, filled with a frantic energy that terrified her more than the storm raging around them. Mom, what's happening? Jamie's voice was a quiet whimper against the cacophony. Stay back. Stay away. Sarah shouted, thrusting her arm out to hold back the throng. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. This was not the Mill Creek she'd grown up in, it was a twisted carnival of madness. Listen to reason. Another voice cried from the crowd. It was Mrs. Thompson, but her tone was dripping with something dark. If we don't give what belongs to the woods, we'll all be lost. A surge of fear gripped Sarah. What are you saying? She fought to keep her voice steady as panic swirled like a tornado around her. What are you going to do with Jamie? We're saving him. This is for the town. They screeched in unison, stepping closer, their hands reaching out. The air pulsed with a heartbeat of its own, as if something unseen was drawing strength from their chaos, feeding on the terror and despair. Stop. She planted her feet firmly, adrenaline coursing through her, igniting a spark of defiance. You can't take my son. Whatever you think you need, you're wrong. She felt her voice waver, but the fire in her heart blazed hotter. The crowd halted, eyes narrowing on her. An unsettling silence fell, interrupted only by the howling wind and distant thunder. Sarah could feel their collective shock, their hunger for her child. Suddenly, a shriek erupted from behind them, a sound so raw and primal it stopped her cold. Something from the woods was calling, pulling them back toward darkness. Don't you hear it? Mr. Collins raved, stepping forward, eyes wild. It wants him. It wants them all. The offering, the blood must flow. No. She wouldn't let them. With a burst of energy, she turned and grabbed Jamie, darting towards the kitchen. Get to the back. She yelled, her mind racing. She knew the layout of their house, but terror had a way of warping distance. Mom, what's out there? Jamie cried, fear clutching his small voice. I don't know. But I won't let anyone take you. As they reached the kitchen, the door behind them slammed shut. She yanked the drawer open, scrambling for anything to defend herself, knives, pots, anything to create a barrier. The neighbors had become something monstrous, chanting outside now, their voices mingling with the howl of the wind. She was chosen. She belongs to us. Then came the thundering crash of fists against the kitchen door, splintering it, sending tremors through the floor. The oppressive darkness surged toward them like a living thing, emanating from the crowd, feeding on their collective madness. Hold on tight. She barked, grabbing Jamie's small hand, praying desperately for a way out. The back window offered a glimpse of freedom, but outside, the dark forest loomed, twisted branches like fingers reaching out, beckoning them in. Mom! Jamie's panic surged. I can't. The window creaked open as she shoved it wide, adrenaline heightening her senses. We have to jump. Trust me. She felt her heart break at the fear in his eyes, but she steeled herself, glancing back at the encroaching figures, breathless, ravenous, drawn to the boy she loved more than anything. The chanting increased, echoing like an agonizing hymn of betrayal. We've come for what's owed. As thunder rumbled overhead, Sarah took a deep breath, steeled her nerves, and leaped into the void, dragging Jamie with her. Searing terror filled them as the ground rushed up to meet them. And then they were tumbling through darkness, the forest welcoming them like a beast unleashed. But the worst was yet to come, for even if they escaped the mob, something far more sinister awaited them, lurking in the woods ready to reveal its true nature. What price would the forest demand for their fury? Would there be a way to escape its grip, or had they unwittingly started a game from which there was no return? The ground was unforgiving as Sarah and Jamie hit hard, rolling into a dense thicket of underbrush. Branches snagged at their clothes, and leaves rustled like whispers, secrets shared between the trees. Mom, are they coming? Jamie's voice trembled, too close to a sob. I don't know. Sarah hissed, yanking Jamie to his feet. Instinctively, she turned to the forest, eyes darting between the gnarled trunks, twisted limbs stretching toward them like the claws of a predator. We need to keep moving. The sounds of the mob faded for a moment, drowned by the chirps of cicadas and the rustling of leaves. But then came the distant howls, a chorus of anguish that sent chills down her spine. The woods themselves felt alive, shifting in shadows, and she sensed something more than just the looming threat of their neighbors. "Mom, I see something." Jamie pointed to a flicker of light shimmering between the trees, eerie and beckoning. "No. We can't go there." Sarah yanked him back, heart racing. It could be a trap. But the glow pulsed, inviting, a promise of safety wrapped in sin. It taunted her, whispering the same ancient call that drew the townsfolk, that echoed through the darkened space of her mind what was owed. "Please, Mom." Jamie's voice pulled her back. His eyes, wide and shining, were locked on the light. She knew she had to stay strong, for him. But doubt crept in. What if this was their only chance? "We have to find a place to hide." She banked her instincts against the call of that light, her gaze cast back toward the dense growth behind them. "Come on." They darted deeper into the trees, branches snapping underfoot, their breathing heavy with exertion. The air thickened around them, and an uneasy stillness settled. Even the insects seemed to quiet, as if holding their breath in anticipation. Suddenly, there was a crack, like a twig snapping. Sarah froze, heart pounding so loudly she was certain Jamie could hear it. "Did you hear that?" He nodded, eyes darting around wildly. "Stay close," she whispered, gripping his hand tighter. They edged back, moving slowly, listening. A low growl rumbled from somewhere deeper in the woods, rumbling like thunder across the aching silence. A figure stepped into view, a silhouette blurred in the darkness, tall, with spindly limbs and an elongated face. It shimmered as if made of shadows and cloud, its eyes two bright orbs of hunger. Instinctively, Sarah crouched, shielding Jamie behind her, breaths shallow in panic. "Stay behind me," she whispered fiercely, barely recognizing her own words. But the creature didn't move. It tilted its head, observing them, and Sarah felt the weight of 1,000 eyes pressing upon her from the depths of the forest. The whispers returned, just below her hearing, like the rustle of lost souls lost in branches. It was always here, lurking, feeding off the fear that enveloped them. "Mom, it's not human." Jamie stammered, eyes wide with terror. "I know," she breathed, heart racing as the creature opened its mouth, revealing rows of jagged teeth glistening in the faint light. Flickers of that otherworldly glow danced around it, fueling its form, a mockery of life. Before she could react, the figure lunged toward them, and Sarah screamed, yanking Jamie to her side. They bolted through the underbrush, weaving through the trees, the stench of decay and rot filling her nostrils as they raced deeper into the maze of the woods. Each hurried breath intensified her sense of dread as the night encroached, shadows closing in. Somewhere ahead, the glow flickered, still tempting, terrifying, unbearable, but they had no choice but to keep moving. "Mom! What do we do?" Jamie cried, desperation lacing his words. "Just follow me," she yelled, racing forward into the dark unknown. But inside her mind twisted a new thought. What if they weren't just running from their neighbors? What if they were running towards something even worse? With every step, the forest deepened, and Sarah felt the darkness breathing down their necks. There was no way out. They were ensnared, drawn into a hunt they didn't understand, with something ancient waiting to claim them. And just then, behind them, the ghastly laughter of the mob erupted anew, echoing through twisted branches like a gloating troll. Was it too late to save Jamie? Would the forest demand a price they couldn't pay? The answers lay somewhere out there in the encroaching shadows. The darkness seemed to pulse as they dashed deeper into the woods, the frantic beating of Sarah's heart matching the thudding of her feet against the earth. Each step felt like a gamble, a chance of discovery by whatever lurked behind them. "Mom! I can't run anymore." Jamie's breath came in shallow gasps, his voice laced with panic. She glanced back. He was struggling to keep pace, his small frame shuddering with exhaustion. "Just a little further, sweetheart," she urged, forcing her voice into a steadiness she didn't feel. The laughter of the mob rang like haunting music in the air, filling the space around them with dread. It echoed through the trees, blending into the wind, mocking them. They were closing in. "We need to hide," Sarah shouted, scanning their surroundings for any semblance of cover. A thick clump of bushes came into view, just ahead. Without a moment's thought, she rushed toward it, pulling Jamie close. They huddled low, pressed against the brambles, desperately trying to silence their breaths. Jamie flexed in her grip, trembling. Sarah put a finger to her lips, urging him to stay quiet. The laughter drew nearer, now a cacophony of voices weaving together like a tapestry of madness. Were they laughing at her and Jamie or the terror that bound them in this cage of trees? The air felt electric, charged with a sinister energy. Then, she heard it, a rustle. A branch snapped nearby. Sarah's grip on Jamie tightened as they both stared into the darkness, terrified eyes wide. Just then, the glow flickered once more, illuminating the area around them, a will-o'-the-wisp, both beautiful and wicked, dancing between the trees. Sarah felt a pull inside her, urging her to rise and follow it. "Mom," Jamie whispered, eyes glistening with something undefined. "What if it leads us to safety?" "No, no." Sarah shook her head fiercely. "That's not real. We can't trust it." But something in the depths of her mind began to sway, like a thin thread caught in the wind. The wisps flickered ethereally, darting away, teasing with the very possibility of escape. Before she could react, shadows swirled around the bushes. Figures came into view, emerging like phantoms from the night-long limbs, hollow eyes set against the stark white of their faces. They stared right at her, mouths stretched in wide, horrible grins. "Join us," one hissed, voice smooth like oil. The dull ache of dread in her stomach twisted, and she felt Jamie flinch beside her. "Mom!" he whimpered, his head buried against her side. "No!" she barked, fierce and defiant, even as terror gripped her heart. Fear surged within her, intertwining with the desperation to protect her son. You can't resist." They moved closer, gliding on the forest floor, serpentine and hypnotic. One reached out a long, too thin hand. A primal instinct stirred inside Sarah. She was ready to bolt at a moment's notice. She could picture the glow drawing her in, consuming them like moths to a flame. "No!" she screamed. "We want to go with you." The figures paused, a ripple of confusion passing through them like a breeze through leaves. Sarah seized the moment and, hand gripping Jamie's, pushed through the bushes, defying the invisible chains trying to pull them back. "Run!" she shouted, sprinting with Jamie toward the flickering light, the only thing that felt remotely hopeful in the encroaching night. They dashed forward, each step driven by raw adrenaline and fear, the laughter of the mob swelling again behind them, louder and more triumphant. But the glow ahead seemed alive, purging the night of shadows. It beckoned her, one last promise of salvation. Unthinking, each footfall became an echo, reverberating panic through her bones. What would she find at the end of that path? Would it be the safety she craved or a snare she had unknowingly walked into? The answer loomed ever closer. The light shimmered like a mirage, winding through the trees, yet it felt more uncertain with every footfall. Sarah's feet felt heavy, like lead, dragging against a force that pushed back at her. Jamie stumbled beside her, gasping as though the air stung his lungs. "Mom, I don't know if I can keep running," he cried, desperation coloring his voice. "Just a little longer," she urged again, her own resolve faltering as fear twisted in her stomach. The laughter behind them surged, an ominous echo that seemed to get caught in her chest, rooting her in place for a split second. "Mom!" In that moment, pity blurred her purpose. She turned, trying to catch a glimpse of the figures lurking nearby. Their grins grew wider, stretching and reshaping as if they were elastic. They beckoned with twisted fingers, hypnotic and cold. She could see it now. One figure began to sway, luring her in. It was laughing still, but it was different now. This laughter sounded familiar. "Mom, please." Jamie's voice snapped her back. "Right. We keep moving," she barked, steeling herself again. They resumed their sprint, driven by an instinct to survive. The pulsing light ahead shimmered with promise, but what awaited them felt profoundly uncertain. "Do you see those trees?" Jamie pointed, panic etched on his tiny face. "They look wrong." She squinted, but the light blinded her for a moment and shapes melded into grotesque silhouettes. "Focus on me, Jamie. Just keep running." She didn't look back, not daring to risk those figures gaining ground. All her attention locked on that light like a guiding star. The ground transitioned from roots to grass, damp and swollen with moisture from the evening's unexpected rain. She could smell the earth, a mixture of decay and life, an oxymoron that thudded in her chest. They finally reached a clearing where the glow intensified, breathing warmth into the chilly air. It flickered like a dying flame, yet its allure compelled her. She felt it pull at the edges of her mind, urging her to let go of fear. "Mom." Jamie's voice trailed off, a mix of wonder and fear. "Stay close," she hissed, scanning the perimeter. The figures lingered just past the trees, still, watching, waiting. As they stepped into the clearing, the light surged, revealing old stones arranged in a circle. Each stone etched with symbols, filled with shadows that seemed alive. A soft, pulsating hum emanated from beneath them, vibrating through the ground like a heartbeat. Sarah felt her heart race alongside it. "Do you feel that?" she whispered, unsure if it was the dread from the shadows or the enchantment of the glowing stones. Jamie's eyes widened. It's calling us." "No!" she shouted, panic lacing her voice. "We have to resist." But the warmth wrapped around them, soothing and enticing. The figures were still, their grins somehow wider now, faces illuminated by the glow in a sickening luminescence. Suddenly, the laughter soared again, echoing around the clearing. They surged forward, shadows merging and twisting. A blinding radiance enveloped them. "Mom!" Jamie cried, as the figures lunged, extending their ghostly arms. A scream tore from Sarah's throat, but the sound fell away into the vastness. It felt like they were standing on the edge of a precipice, an unknown fate hovering just beyond. As the figures closed in, a memory flashed, her mother's voice, coaxing, "Follow the light, Sarah." But what if this wasn't the light of safety? What if it was the light of abandon? And just like that, she began to question everything. "Mom!" The world around them began to swirl, and the shadows lunged. Sarah's heart raced, but confusion struck deeper. In that moment of uncertainty, she felt Jamie slip from her grip, his small body drawn lightly towards the stones. "No, Jamie!" Her scream shattered the air, but the glow pulsed, and she felt the ground beneath her shift. What would she have to sacrifice to recover what was slipping away? And would she save them both, or condemn them to this nightmare? The answer was slipping through her fingers just as quickly as her son. The ground yawed beneath Sarah's feet. She lunged forward, desperate to catch Jamie, but the stones inched back, pulling him deeper into the light. The air hummed louder, filling her ears and drowning out her thoughts. It felt alive, feeding off her fear, twisting it into something palpable. "Let him go!" she screamed, her body trembling. The figures stepped closer, their laughter morphing into an otherworldly harmony that danced in her mind. Their eyes, dark and soulless, locked onto her. "We just want to play. We can keep him safe," one of them hissed, a voice like rusted metal. It sent a shiver of dread down her spine. "Play? What kind of game?" she asked, feeling her facade of bravery begin to crack. "Come closer and find out," they crooned, their smiles stretching impossibly wide. She was aware of the shadows creeping along the ground, inching towards her like thick smoke, threatening to consume her whole. "No!" she cried, scrambling backward. Jamie hovered at the edge of the circle, indecision painted across his face. "Mom! Help me! Jamie!" Her voice trembled, torn between moving towards him and the monstrous entities closing in. The pulsing light shifted again, blinding her momentarily. The moment was seized. Sarah, the familiar voice of her mother, echoed in the tumult. "You've got to trust it. It's the only way." "No. No." Panic clawed at her throat. "No more games." The figures lunged, fingers elongated as if they were pendulums of time itself. The warmth from the stones surged forward, wrapping around Sarah like tendrils, trying to entice her into its embrace. Frantic, she focused on Jamie's small figure. "Run! Get away!" she shrieked, the command breaking through the spell like glass shattering in a quiet room. Jamie hesitated, the glow tugging at him. But that last cry broke through the enchantment like a dagger. Fear replaced awe, and he sprinted from the light. As he stumbled, Sarah felt some of the weight lift from her chest. She moved forward, extending her arms. "That's it. Jamie! Come to me!" But the laughter grew darker, the shift in the air felt pregnant with intent and malice. One of the figures took another step, baring teeth that were too sharp, too jagged. "You can't take him, Sarah," it hissed, voice dripping with menace. "He belongs to us now." In a moment of sheer instinct, Sarah threw herself towards Jamie, ignoring the overwhelming pull of the glow. The figures shrieked, the sound echoing like nails on a chalkboard, splitting the air around them. She reached for him just as he fell, slipping through the soil, the ground shifting like water beneath them. Everything around her spun, the clearing twisted into a whirlpool of shadow and light, and she felt like she was falling, pulled along with him. "Mom!" Jamie screamed. "Hold on to me!" she shouted, her voice breaking. She grasped his arm, pulling with all her might. The glow flickered, weakening momentarily, but with every surge of strength she summoned, shadows clawed at her legs, pulling her down, dragging her back towards the figures. "Sacrifice one to save the other," a whisper floated through the chaos, entwining her thoughts like a serpent tightening its coils. She was caught between two worlds, pulling Jamie to safety while something malevolent beckoned her deeper into darkness. "Sarah!" His voice echoed, filled with panic, and she felt the tears coursing down her cheeks, heart pounding like a war drum. "Let us go." She wrenched him back, everything blurring around them. The pulse of the stones dimmed as shadows faded momentarily, revealing a path back. They stumbled backward, breath heaving. But just as they began to retreat, the figures erupted in a chorus of laughter that drowned them out, drowning hope. "You can't escape," faith mangled with despair, and Sarah's thoughts scattered. What was she willing to abandon? What was worth saving? The stones began to surge back to life, swallowing the light as they darkened again. With every heartbeat, the night thickened, reaching out, enveloping the clearing in shadows. "Mom!" Jamie's voice trembled once more, his grip slipping. "What do I do?" she gasped, feeling dread curling in her stomach, tightening like a noose. From the depths of the shadows, she spotted an opening, a chance to break free. But was it worth the risk? Hold on. But what awaited them on the other side? And would they emerge whole, or shattered, lost to the depths of an unforgiving darkness? The shadows pooled beneath them, dark tendrils reaching with insatiable hunger, clawing at Sarah's legs. She pulled Jamie as hard as she could, heart racing, mind reeling. Panic pumped through her blood like poison, and the world spiraled around them. "Mom! I can't hold on." Jamie's voice pierced the chaos, trembling with sheer terror. "Don't let go!" she shouted, her voice barely cutting through the cacophony of sinister laughter surrounding them. The figures loomed closer, their hollow eyes gleaming with malevolence. Everything seemed to fade except the sight of those grinning faces, too wide, too hungry. "We can help him," Sarah one crooned, its voice a bitter cold whisper against her skin. "Wouldn't you like that?" Each word sent aftershocks through her resolve. Would she sacrifice her own sanity to save Jamie? It felt like a cruel game where the stakes were nothing less than their souls. "Just take a step closer," another hissed, stretching its fingers toward her. They twitched in the air, beckoning like a moth to a flame. The smell of damp earth intertwined with something sickly sweet, making her stomach churn. "No!" she gasped, clutching Jamie's wrist tighter. She stumbled back again, dragging him with her, but the darkness swirled more ferociously, encasing them. The starlight above flickered, as though it too was unsure of its role in this tableau of dread. What if this was all an illusion? What if stepping closer meant slipping into another realm, one where they'd be trapped forever? The thought twisted her stomach into knots. "Please," Jamie's voice broke, his eyes wide with desperation. "I want to go home." "Then we will." She felt a fire ignite within her. The love for her child surged, almost pushing away the shadows momentarily. "On the count of 3, we run." "Mom, we can't." "No. We can. Trust me." She felt his pulse throbbing under her grip, steady, a reminder of their connection. They were fighters. They could outlast this nightmare. "Okay," he whispered, fear still making his voice small. 3, 2, 1. Sarah met the deep draw of the darkness with resolve, shoving forward while keeping her gaze fixed on the tiny pinprick of light that had been flickering in the distance. With every ounce of strength left, she pulled him along. But as they lunged forward, the laughter turned into a tumultuous roar. Shadows embraced them as if they were drowning. They were sucked deeper, past the threshold of fear. "Mom!" Jamie cried, his voice echoing like a stone dropping into a bottomless well. "Hold on!" she screamed, muscles screaming with exertion. They were nearly to the edge, the light pulsating like a heartbeat, promising safety. Her lungs burned, and she could feel the pull behind them trying to drag them back. The figures screamed, a sound like split metal that shattered any remaining hope. "Your light will not save you. You chose to play." The ground beneath them quaked violently, and Sarah stumbled. The next moment, she felt Jamie slip, his hand tearing away, leaving his warm skin to grasp at air. "Mom!" Time slowed as she lunged again, but it wasn't enough. The earth roared, darkness crashing like waves. It was consuming everything, pulling Jamie deep into the heart of despair. "No! No! Jamie!" She felt her heart break as she saw him struggling at the mercy of the shadows. The dark figures closed their circle, eyes burning with triumph, and she could only stand frozen, a scream lodged in her throat thick with horror. "Mom, please! Help me!" She had a choice, she could run or fight. But every instinct told her that something sinister awaited them at the edge of the light. A desperate whisper cut through the chaos, a voice she recognized. "It's a trap, Sarah. Don't let him go." It was her mother's voice echoing from beyond the veil, but where was she? Shadows danced at the corners of her vision, waiting to claim her. "Mom," Jamie whimpered, eyes wide with dread. "Hold on, Jamie. I'm coming." The words felt like sharp glass lodged in her throat as she began to stride forward again, determination battling the encroaching darkness. But in those last moments, what if reaching Jamie meant losing herself? "Sarah!" The shadows roared, and she felt the call of their pull. What would happen if she stepped over that line? Would she become one of them? In that moment of indecision, the cold, metallic laughter swelled around her like a storm. "Sarah, come play with us," and the darkness thickened, closing in faster than her racing heart could manage. Would she let it claim them both? The figures slithered closer, waiting with hungry glee, and just before she could step forward, everything twisted and blurred, leading to one chilling question: did she have the strength to fight, or was she meant to join their game? The world spun violently, shadows clawing at Sarah's senses as reality faded. Panic surged anew, pulsating through her. Jamie! Her voice hung in the dense air, a flailing cry lost to the hungry darkness. She felt the icy fingers of despair wrapping around her throat. With every breath, the grip tightened, threatening to choke her hope. The laughter swirled around them, wrapping its sinister tendrils in sinister, mocking delight. Time warped, each second stretching into an eternity. Mom! I can't see you. Jamie's voice cracked, shaking with terror. The distance between them felt insurmountable, the space filled with sinister shapes and twisted forms. How could she bridge that gap when the darkness morphed, separating them like a chasm? Don't worry. I'm right here. She nearly cried the words, as if willing them to travel through the suffocating darkness. The laughter faded into raucous whispers, intertwining into a dark symphony, circling her thoughts with chilling finesse. Sarah, another voice chimed, this one sweet and unyielding. You could be free of this burden. Let him go, you know it's for the best. The words wrapped around her, silk soft yet suffocating. Images flashed through her mind: happiness, the world they had shared, laughing at the park, sharing secrets beneath the stars. Would releasing Jamie free her of her sadness? Would it ensure her own survival? But the darkness refused to let her think past a veil of sheer terror. Mom, please. Desperate sobs echoed, louder than the shadows. Jamie's pleas cut deep, a knife to her heart. They fought too hard to give in to this nightmare. She clenched her fists, determination fueling her resolve even as despair tried to chip away at it. I can't. I want tea. She shouted defiantly, her voice breaking through their sinister lullabies. I love you too much to let go. For a moment, the laughter paused, silence unfurling like a thick fog. A hint of uncertainty wrapped around the sinister figures, their grins faltering. You think you can resist, but we know your fears, your darkest thoughts, one cooed. Its breath was like smoke, wrapping around her mind, suffocating her with doubt. Images flashed before her, a future silent and alone, her heart hardened into stone. Just say yes and you could be free. No! She screamed, defiance surging. She lifted her head, glancing around, desperate to find the light. It was still there, flickering in the distance, undimming. Jamie! I'm coming! She surged forward, even as the shadows lunged for her, sinking claws into her skin, ripping through fabric and flesh. The pain shot through her, raw and electric, but it only fueled her determination. Suddenly, the darkness splintered, a crack in its iron hold. She lunged forward, reaching blindly for Jamie amid shrieks of rage and despair all around her. Then, she found it, a slim, warm hand grasping hers, small yet fierce. They locked eyes, and time stood still. Got you! She gasped, pulling him close, but just as clarity bloomed, the shadows roared back, furious and ravenous. The figures twisted and screamed, voices melding into a cacophony of vile whispers. You dare defy us? The ground bucked beneath their feet, the air thickening as if the darkness itself tried to swallow them whole. The light flickered wildly, teasing them, pushing them back far from salvation. Run, Jamie! She cried, dragging him toward the light. They raced forward, but the claws of the shadows sank deeper, pulling at their ankles, gripping their feet like iron shackles. With every ounce of strength, she pulled, hearing Jamie's breathless cries behind her. Don't let go. The determination in his voice ignited something powerful within her, yet, as they neared the edge of the light, a hand broke free of the shadows and snagged Jamie's leg, yanking him back with a bone-chilling strength. Join us, little one, no! Sarah screamed, desperately lunging to save him. But it wasn't just Jamie the darkness sought. It wanted her, too. I'll show you what it means to truly be free. The voice vibrated through the air like a death knell. Could she really save her son and escape the suffocating grasp of despair? Mom! Jamie's panicked voice echoed in the tumult. The shadows twisted, becoming a living nightmare, hungry for flesh and fear. Sarah felt the world shatter around her as terror swirled like a storm. Darkness loomed ahead, barriers closing in. Would she sacrifice everything for her son, or could she find a way through with her soul intact? Just then, a crack of light pierced through the shadows. The pathway shimmered, offering a fleeting glimpse of hope, but was it real or another cruel trick of the dark? In that perilous moment, Sarah made her choice. They would fight. They had to. But as she charged forward, the darkness dissolved into a chilling whisper. Then let the games begin. What awaited them as they pressed further into the light? Would they make it through, or was there more torment waiting just beyond the fleeting glow? The world around Sarah exploded into chaos, shadows twisting and coiling with furious tendrils that clawed at her mind, promising to suffocate the light within her. Jamie! She screamed, fueled by a love so deep it blazed against the encroaching dark. The moment stretched wildly as she fought against the grasping shadows, their icy fingers scraping at her skin, drawing blood, echoing with the malignant laughter of the figures. Freedom is just a choice away. A serpent of a voice taunted, bitter and vile. Just let go. No. Her voice rang firm, cutting through the cacophony. She could feel Jamie's small hand still clasped to hers, tugging desperately as he struggled against the shadows that sought to drag him away. Let us go. She pushed forward, their bodies intertwining with pulsating light that beckoned them closer. Her heart, a drum of fierce defiance, kept her feet moving, anchored to the flickering promise of safety. Jamie cried out, a plead so pure it tightened the ache around her heart. Mom! I'm scared. I know, baby. Just trust me. Sarah shouted again, summoning every ounce of strength she could muster. Together, they plunged deeper into the light, the shadows around them howling in fury, a tempest of rage erupting behind. With each step they took, she felt the shadows retreating, whispering tiny fears and regrets, flickering like fireflies unable to withstand the dawn. Their laughter echoed less, battling against the growing warmth surrounding her. And still, they pulled back, clutching at the ground like a desperate lover trying to hold on. Mom, it's getting darker. Jamie's wide eyes flickered fearful glances, searching for the faces he knew among the monstrosities. I don't want to be taken. The light will keep us safe, I promise. Just keep moving. Sarah pushed back the creeping tendrils, cutting through confusion and fear with the flame of her love. She felt it all around her, their shared memories filling the spaces between shadows. Just when it seemed the darkness might swallow them whole, a soft, yet forceful wind surged forth, swirling around them with warmth. We are not afraid. We are not alone. The ground beneath them trembled, releasing a chorus of anguished howls that rang through the air as the shadows recoiled, whispering of despair stripped of power. The light pulsed ahead, ever brighter, an ethereal force dragging them through the gradient from night to day. In that moment, Sarah's focus sharpened. She saw it before them, a vision of exit, a radiant curtain sweeping aside the darkness. Jamie's hand remained tight in hers, and as if sensing her renewed strength, he pulled forward, finding trust in the warmth of her presence. Do you see it? She yelled to him, their eyes locking as determination surged. We're almost there. Yes. I see it. He replied, excitement cutting through his fear. They both bolted through the darkness, sprinting toward that brilliant light, shadows dissipating like fog in the morning. As they reached the edge, they felt a sudden jerk, a resistance pulling at their backs. The shadows, enraged, erupted in a chilling roar, clawing against the edges of their light. You cannot leave. You are still ours. But Sarah, fueled by the warmth of love and the urgency to protect her son, pushed them both forward. No. You don't own us. The words burst forth, ringing clear and true, smashing against the darkness like a stone against glass. With one final surge, they leaped into the light. The world exploded with brilliance, a rush of freedom enveloping them like the first breath of spring. On the other side, they tumbled onto soft grass, the woods fading behind like a bad dream. Breathless, Sarah held onto Jamie tightly, feeling the warmth of the sun kiss her cheek. They lay there, gasping for air, the echo of darkness still resonating in their souls, but further away now, as if replaced by something new hope. Sarah looked up at the sky, her heart racing yet calming in rhythm. It was dawn. A new day, free from the chains of Mill Creek. "We made it," she whispered. "Mom, we really did." Jamie grinned, the innocence of a child reborn in light after the night's engulfing terror. Tears streaked down Sarah's face, mixing joy and sorrow as she pulled him close. "I love you, Jamie. We'll never stop fighting for each other." Together, they rose to face the dawn, one step at a time. Mill Creek felt like a distant nightmare, a vestige of worry receding into nothingness. But as they walked away from the forest, every whisper and every figure faded, leaving nothing but the trail of their resolve behind. Life awaited, blooming with possibility, and no longer bound by the dark echoes of the past. Now, if you're reading this, help support our channel. You need to subscribe immediately, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories we'll unveil. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm so we can keep bringing you the best content. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let us engage and connect. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know how important it is to help our community grow.